Hi, I'm Charlie Saccarelli from Chadwick Optical, and today I'm going to talk about the development of vision from birth. The reason for that is because vision is far more complicated than we normally reduce it down to the 20/20 visual acuity, and I want to talk a little bit about how vision is more of a individual evolutionary process per person, rather than it being this kind of like poof, you have vision. So it is important to realize that every person develops vision independently. Now, that's not to say that it's different because we're all human and we all have a lot of shared attributes. But when we develop, we all develop individually. So what that means is that, over the course of 20, 30, 40 years, my vision is not the same as your vision, is not the same as somebody else's vision. So when you're born, you're pretty much blind. You're definitely legally blind. Your acuity is about 2400, and you can't see about 8 to 10 inches from your face. And that is fine because, really the only important thing when you're first born is your food source. And the food source being 8 to 10 inches from you is good because that means, hey, food, time for food. So the other thing is there's no color vision to speak of. So a baby's vision is largely monochromatic. So that's at newborn. Now, at 4 weeks, a little bit more stuff is happening. So at 4 weeks, if you create a light source, a baby would turn towards the light source, would have some kind of indication of being aware of the light source, and they would also be tracking objects horizontally by moving ahead. So this is one of those things where if you put the mobile up over the crib, it's absolutely fascinating to them because it's moving around and they can move their head, and it's an interesting means of kind of coordinating and developing the vision. Now, so that's 4 weeks. Now, where are you at 2 to 3 months? So 2 to 3 months, now a baby starts recognizing faces. And one of the most beautiful things in the world is seeing a baby watch their own hands. Because when they watch their own hands, they're surprised by them. It's almost like they're a separate entity. So when the hand moves, they almost act surprised. They're like, what happened? They'll also start tracking vertically in addition to horizontally. So that's at 2 to 3 months. Now, from 3 to 6 months, the vision expands out into the world. So they'll be more aware of their surroundings and see things further out. They'll be able to focus their attention across a room. They also love looking in the mirror because they can kind of that will literally mirror the actions that they're taking. So if their hand moves and they see the mirror, they can kind of coordinate what's happening there. And then at that point, they'll start moving their eyes independently from their head. So up until then, a movement is they're moving their head left and right and up and down to see stuff in the world. Now, the interesting thing at around 6 months is that at that time, an infant will achieve what we know as 20/20 or perfect visual acuity. Now, what's interesting about that is if they can achieve that at 6 months, does that mean that their vision is complete developing? Because if you think about it, the 20/20 vision is our kind of benchmark of perfect vision, and a 6-month-old baby can achieve 20/20 vision. So that would mean that if that were an accurate assessment of vision, it would mean that vision is done developing at that point. Is the vision done developing at that point? That's an interesting concept. Is there any other part of our life where we're fully developed at 6 months of age? So at 6 months of age, our heart rate is super high, our blood pressure is super low, our respiratory rate's super fast. So at 6 months of age, we're not fully developed. We still got everything coming together. So there's a lot in vision that develops after 6 months. And the way I look at 20/20 vision, the way I look at vision development is that 6 months is when you achieve that 20/20. That's kind of like you have the force, right? So you have the clear vision, but now the question is, what do you do to develop that vision into function? Because normally 6 months, like you're not even walking, you're not doing much. And beyond 6 months, what we're doing is developing other skills where we use our vision and kind of integrate it with the rest of our body. So, the next step beyond the 20/20 visual acuity is things like crawling. So, the baby will watch their hand and move and crawl and kind of coordinate all these things. They also enjoy around that time when they get the better vision. They enjoy games like peekaboo, that kind of thing. So They'll also begin copying sounds and gestures. So these are all things that happen after 20/20 vision. So you're perceiving and replicating what you see in the outside world is mostly after you've achieved perfect vision. What other kind of stuff develops after then? So if you picture a hockey goalie or a baseball batter, the amount of vision usage, the amount of coordination that's required, really goes beyond what 20/20 vision is capable of. So the other thing, is the other thing that develops is when you're walking, when you're inspecting things, and then the other thing is using your vision to steer your body. So, for instance, if I see something over there, it's not necessarily a natural behavior that I would reach over and accurately grip whatever it is that I'm looking at. That's a learned behavior. So that's a behavior that coordinates your body to your vision. The other thing that a 6-month-old can't do usually is read. So you read, you're taking in all of these things, you're comprehending them, and then think about somebody playing music. Think about somebody, like I said, a batter, goalie. All of those things are this incredible amount of coordination between the vision and the body. So after you achieve the 20/20 vision, now you're spending the rest of your life coordinating your vision to the rest of your being. Now, when you coordinate it, picture this kind of gradual development of your system, of your eyes coordinating with the rest of your body. How do we measure that? And the way that we don't really in optical, in optometry, in ophthalmology, and when we're doing a refraction, the way that we measure that is we can measure eye movements, we can measure accuracy of grabbing, we can measure all those things, but those things aren't typically included in an eye exam. So basically, when you get an eye exam and you get your refraction and your vision is 20/20, what that tells you is that you are efficient as a 6-month-old. Now, for me, that's not enough. I would want to know more. Like, how do my eyes work together? Can we measure that? And the tests for that aren't typically done in optometry, but they probably should be. If you are expecting vision to be, if you're expecting a measurement of seeing how your vision is, you would think that you would have something better than a 6-month standard of how your vision is. So let's talk about that in the context of headaches, in the context of concussion, in the context of all of these things. So you have developed this vision from birth, and everybody has developed it separately. And the example that I give of developing it separately is what happens to you when you see a dog. So let's say you see a dog. Depending on your upbringing, depending on everything and your experience with dogs in life, you have an association with the dog. Now, you can see that dog clearly, whether that dog fills you with fright or whether that dog fills you with glee. But your vision capturing that dog and processing that dog, that's independent. Development of vision is hierarchical in that you want to build a foundation before you build stuff on top of the foundation. And that is a lot of the problem that requires vision therapy, that requires different things with concussion recovery, and sometimes just you missed a step. So if we think of things like myopia, and myopia is a good example. So we were talking about it being a learned behavior. Myopia, what is myopia? Myopia is nearsightedness. And in the world that we live in today, where you probably have a phone, and that phone is probably some distance from your face, or a computer some distance from your face most of the time, what you're going to, one of the things that's happening that's now called an epidemic is our bodies adapt to living at this distance of 18 inches, and our eyes develop to focus that because they're like, hey, this is what normal is. If you go back 1,000 years before movable type, conditions like myopia didn't really exist. The reason they didn't exist is because your world was all far out. You were always looking at a distance, and that's what your eyes were calibrated for. So this being an evolutionary adaptation, the myopia thing, what else are evolutionary adaptations? And is it possible to kind of skip a step in your development? So, and the answer is yeah, it is possible. So you can skip a step. And if you skip a step in your development, So like say your two eyes don't work together, that's going to, anything you go beyond that is going to be challenging. So now learning music is challenging, playing sports is challenging if you've never developed the ability for your two eyes to work together. So it's, I guess the reason that I wanted to talk about this is because we take vision in its current state for granted as if this is how it's supposed to be. And we encounter headaches and we encounter a lot of different things that aren't necessarily natural, but are indicative of us not being developed in the way that we need to develop to serve our lifestyle today. And that's what vision therapy is all about. That's what certain types of glasses are all about, is to help correct that imbalance that's kind of been created over time by not by vision kind of not developing normally.